everyone, Sukol, and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about my recent DNFs, so books that I didn't finish. I usually don't tag them as read or anything on my Goodreads page because it doesn't feel like the reading is justified, so I leave them be because I never finished them or read enough to give it a rating. So this might be surprising to you because I've never talked about them before on my channel. The first book that I want to talk about is Kidnapped by the Pirate by Keira Andrews. And I needed to not laugh at me. I guess I had to see it coming that I'm not going to like this book. But the cover is objectively beautiful, regardless of what you think about old-timey romance covers. It gives me good nostalgia. The reason why I like historical romances in general is because they are high camp, they are extremely entertaining, they're like soaps, and that's what I like about them. I think I need to make a separate video about my love of historical romances. It started when I was very young. I was reading after my mom, and I've read so many, and some of them are complete bonkers. I read one when a girl was kidnapped by a Scottish lord. They did the dirty and got married, and after that she refused to sleep with him because he refused to wash his ass, or like himself in general, and she was like, you know what, I'm going to wear a celibacy belt until you wash your fucking ass. This was a literal conflict in a traditionally published novel, so the question that I have for you is, could your fave ever? I honestly was never as entertained in my reading journey as I were when I was reading those books. My only goal when I picked up Kidnapped by the Pirate was to experience as pure of a joy as I experienced in the past. It was bad. I couldn't handle going past the 40%. Sometimes when a piece of art knows that it's terrible and is self-aware, it is ascending to the gold tier level. The easy example is Showgirls. If you've seen that movie, you know how iconic it is. The acting and the script are something else. This novel didn't have the range for that, and I couldn't even hate read it till the end. I stopped on the 30% mark. It's obviously about a guy who was kidnapped by a pirate, but the pirate is hot, and the pirate has the hots for the guy. So the guy in the pirate share room, he is a very valuable asset because the pirate wants to sell him back to his parents. Stuff happens. We know what kind of stuff. They be fucking in that room. And the thing that aggravated me a lot is that not only the characters were complete stereotypes, which I could live with if the novel was more self-aware of it, the dynamic between the characters was so cringe that I got goosebumps reading it. Not good goosebumps, bad goosebumps. And the pirate constantly called the guy not by his name, but as some kind of fruit. I don't really remember what kind of fruit, but let's say peaches. So can you imagine, there's a pirate that's very rough around the edges, that is supposed to be super intimidating, and then he digs you and he calls you peaches. An instant turn off. So I didn't get the drama that I was looking for. I thankfully didn't pay any money for this book because I was listening to the audio on Scribd, and I don't especially regret picking it up. I had a bit of a laugh, but the cringe was too much for me. Another book that I DNF'd was Timekeeper by Tara Sim. It is a steampunky fantasy about a guy who fixes clock towers that control time in his world. He also falls in love for another mechanic. He is a dude. It was supposed to be about their romance, about some familial stuff and conflict, and also about the disappearance of clock parts all around their world, the mystery behind it. I had no idea how I feel about steampunk before I picked up this book. Turns out I hate it. Turns out it's not my cup of tea. So now we know that. I didn't love the stylistic choices. I do understand that it's a part of the subgenre, I just don't like the subgenre. I hate clocks. Didn't know that I hate clocks, but turns out I do hate clocks. And all the technical stuff around those clocks bored the fuck out of me. So I decided to not finish the book. Nothing else kept my attention. I guess the whole thing was a bit too much for me. I did like the writing, it was very decent. The concept of the book is just not for me. The next on the shopping block is Openly Straight by Konigsberg. I was trying to read more gay books written by gay men in general last year. I was trying. I'm not saying that it was a successful experience, but I do want to see more gay men writing about themselves rather than gay women writing about them or straight women writing about them. So I was rummaging through a lot of lists and trying to find these books, and this one seemed to be super popular, so I decided to pick it up. It is set in college, and I like college set stories because I don't really encounter a lot of them. Thankfully, it was also on Scribd. I started reading it and I immediately realized that it's not going to be for me. The messaging is so on the nose. I knew how this book is going to end at the start of the novel, which is not good. So basically it's about this guy who everyone knows is gay, and people assume his whole personality on his sexual orientation. He gets very aggravated that he is known as the gay guy and nothing else in his hometown. So when he moves to college, he decides to get back into the closet and pretend to be straight. This book, well, the part that I've read, talks a lot about labels and how the protagonist hates the labels and doesn't need them. And we all know where it's going. It's basically going to end up being a story about a guy that was very resentful about his sexuality because people were dicks about it, to be honest, and who at the end would realize that it was not the problem of him being out or him being gay or having a label. It was the problem of people being shitheads and not realizing that even though our sexuality is a big part of our experience and it shapes our personality too and our personal interests, it's still just a part of us. And even though across the board people of the LGBTQIA community share certain experiences, we still have something else in our lives that we're interested in or that we are part of. A lot of little pieces create our personalities, and the sexuality is not only one of them. I don't know if this book was actually good or bad. I just was a little bit bored with the setup. I think it is a very ancient talking point. So I don't think it aged well, not in terms of it being offensive or anything. I just don't think that it's going to give me a lot. Maybe it's going to give something to other people. And we are finally arriving to the hot piece of garbage that is Junkie by Cambria Hebert. First of all, this woman should be stopped. This woman should be stopped from writing any other queer romances ever in her life, because this was terrible. This read like two straight dudes suddenly having boners for each other. These people were not gay. I do believe that somewhere there might be one gay man that talks and looks like this and has these opinions. Is the guy that hates femme gay guys and throws all kinds of slurs their way. So I'm very iffy about a romance novel that centers not one but two guys of this caliber. It reads very tone deaf, very gay for you, and I guess people like it because it has all the popular fanfiction tropes such as there's only one bed, or best friends to lovers, or best friends with repressed feelings. I guess that's the selling point of this book, but it is not written very well in my opinion too, because the monologues of these characters made me cringe so hard. So hard. Honestly, if I had a physical copy of this, I would burn it and I wouldn't feel any remorse about it. The last but definitely not the least out of this 5 is Infinity Sun by Silvera. I know I was talking about it in my most anticipated reads of 2020. I wanted to give Adam Silvera a chance because I was interested how he's going to handle a new genre. It's his first fantasy book and it's going to be a part of a series. The concept was interesting. It was supposed to be about two brothers that really want to be magicians that join some kind of vigilante group to fight against people that steal powers from magical creatures. I've never heard about anything like that before, so it sounded very original to me. The problem with this book is it is not a fantasy per se. It kind of reads like a sci-fi, and I'm very iffy about young adult sci-fi. The people that have magical abilities in this book don't read like witches or magical users or anything. They read like superheroes, and I despise superheroes in books. It is not the media for superheroes. I'm so sorry, it is just not. I've read one book about superheroes and I hated it, and I can't force myself to read another, to be honest, because I don't care. I can handle superheroes in movies because I can see all the powers and how they work out. I can believe in these characters being powerful, and in general I think blockbuster superhero movies just work. TV shows sometimes work and sometimes don't. Comics obviously work. Books just don't work for me, and I guess for a lot of other people too, because I keep hearing that superheroes in books bomb. I think they decided to wrap up this book as in it's about magic, it's fantasy, but it does read very much like sci-fi. I'm not deterring anyone from reading this book. If you're interested in it, pick it up. I don't know if it's good or bad. I just had to nope out because it felt very superhero-y and I wasn't there for that. These are 5 books that are recently DNF'd and I'm very happy about it. In the comments down below, tell me about books that you recently DNF'd, or maybe you actually really like the books that I mentioned in this video. I suspect it's not going to be kidnapped by the pirate. But also, like, do you want me to read terrible books? Or even better, do you want me to find a box of my mom's historical romances and read them for a video? Because I do that. I want to feel this excitement and joy and puzzlement once again in my life. Thank you for watching this video. I hope to see you soon in my next one. But until then,